The morning sun was bright over the Pacific Ocean when the shadow appeared. It moved across the water like a dark cloud, but there were no clouds in the sky that day. Sailors on the USS Valor looked up and saw something that changed the world forever. A ship hung in the air above them. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built. It was black and silver, shaped like a giant knife, and it made no sound at all. Sergeant Marcus Cole stood on the deck with his coffee in his hand. He was 34 years old, with short brown hair and a face that had seen too much sun and too many hard days. He had been a Marine for 15 years. He had fought in wars that made the news and wars that nobody talked about. He had seen friends die and enemies fall, but he had never seen anything like this. Around him, young sailors were running and shouting. Some were praying, some were crying. The ship's alarms were screaming, and officers were yelling orders that made no sense because nobody knew what to do. When aliens came to Earth, Marcus just stood there and watched. He finished his coffee, then he lit a cigarette and kept watching. The alien ship sent a message to every radio, every television, every phone on the planet. The voice spoke in perfect English, though it sounded strange, like a machine trying to copy a human. People of Earth, we are the Valerian Dominion. We have come from beyond your stars. Your world now belongs to us. Do not resist. Representatives will meet with us in 12 hours. Military leaders only. We wish to see your warriors. The world went crazy. After that, governments held emergency meetings. People filled the streets in every city. Some held signs that said, "Welcome." Others held signs that said, "Fight." Most people just held their families and waited to see what would happen next. The United Nations moved fast. They needed military representatives to meet the aliens. They needed people who would not panic, who could stay calm, who could represent humanity's strength without starting a war. They chose carefully. Captain Linda Race was one of them. She was 41 years old, a career officer who had led soldiers in 3 different countries. She was smart, tough, and very good at reading people. She had short black hair and dark eyes that noticed everything. Adult Lieutenant Derek Simmons was another choice. He was young, only 26, fresh from training and eager to prove himself. He had never seen real combat, but he was brave and quick-thinking. The generals thought he would show that humanity had strong young warriors too. And then there was Marcus. He was not the highest-ranking soldier they could send. He was not the most decorated, but when the generals looked at his file, they saw something special. They saw a man who had been in impossible situations and survived. They saw a man who did not break under pressure. They saw a man who knew how to fight, and more importantly, when to fight. The 3 of them were taken by helicopter to a Navy ship, and from there a small craft carried them up to the alien vessel. As they rose through the air, Marcus looked out the window at the Earth below, the blue oceans, the Greenlands, the white clouds. It was beautiful. It was home, and now strangers from another world wanted to take a dot. The inside of the alien ship was cold and gray. The wall seemed to be made of metal that was alive somehow, shifting and moving slightly as they walked. Strange lights glowed from the ceiling, casting shadows that moved in wrong directions. The air smelled like nothing Marcus had ever smelled before. Sharp and clean and somehow wrong. And then they saw the Valerians. Marcus had seen a lot of things in his life that scared him, men with bombs strapped to their chests, enemies hiding in the darkness, friends bleeding out in his arms, but nothing prepared him for the aliens. They were tall, nearly 8 feet, with bodies covered in natural armor that looked like dark stone. They had 4 arms, 2 large ones and 2 smaller ones near their chests. Their faces were not human at all. They had wide mouths full of sharp teeth, eyes that were solid black, and things like insect mandibles on the sides of their jaws that clicked when they moved. They carried weapons that hummed with energy, and they stood in perfect lines along the corridor like statues. They did not move as the humans walked past. They just watched with those black eyes. At the end of the corridor was a large chamber. It was round with high ceilings and a floor made of something that looked like glass but felt solid under their boots. Standing in the center was the biggest Valoran they had seen yet. His armor was decorated with strange symbols, and he carried himself like a king. This was Commander Zethal. He had conquered 47 worlds for the Dominion. He had crushed rebellions and ended civilizations. He had never failed his masters, and he did not plan to start with this primitive little planet. A device on his chest glowed, and when he spoke, the words came out in English. His real voice was a series of clicks and growls. Beneath the translation, "You are the warriors of this world?" he asked. Captain Ray started to answer, but Marcus spoke first. Some of them. Zethal, his mandibles clicked. He looked at Marcus for a long moment. This small human did not look like much. He was not tall. He was not armored. He held no weapon. But there was something in his eyes that made the commander pause. It was only for a second, and then it was gone. "I am Commander Zethro of the Galactic Dominion," the alien said. "Your world has been chosen for integration. You will become part of our empire. Your resources, your technology, your people will serve the Dominion. And if we refuse," Linda asked. Zethro made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Others have refused. The Thraki refused. Their world is ash now. The Orvani refused. They are slaves. The Centauri had great ships and powerful weapons, and they refused. We broke them in 3 cycles of their sun. No one refuses the Dominion." He stepped closer to the humans. His shadow fell over them like night falling over the day. "But we are not cruel. We offer you a choice. Kneel before me now. Acknowledge the Dominion's rule. Accept your place in our empire. If you do this, your world will be treated well. Your people will live. Your children will have futures. All you must do is kneel." Lieutenant Simmons looked at Captain Reyes. She looked at Marcus. The weight of the entire world pressed down on their shoulders. Billions of lives hung on what happened in the next few seconds. Marcus took out a cigarette. He lit it slowly, took a long drag, and let the smoke drift up toward the alien ceiling. Then he smiled. The smoke from the cigarette drifted up. In the cold alien air, Marcus stood there with that small smile on his face, looking up at the giant creature that wanted him to kneel. Around him, the Valerian guard shifted. Their weapons hummed louder. The air in the chamber seemed to grow heavier, like a storm was coming. Commander Zill stared at the human. In all his years of conquest, he had seen many reactions to the demand for submission. He had seen terror. He had seen anger. He had seen begging and crying and desperate bargaining. But he had never seen this. He had never seen a smile. You find this amusing? The commander asked. His voice was calm, but his mandibles clicked faster than before. That was a sign of anger in his species. No, sir, Marcus said. He took another drag from his cigarette. I just find it familiar. You're not the first one to tell me to kneel. Probably won't be the last. Lieutenant Simmons was sweating. He was young and brave, but he was also smart enough to know that they were standing in front of beings that could destroy their entire planet. He wanted to say something, to apologize, to make this right, but his voice would not come. Captain Reyes kept her face calm. She had been in difficult negotiations before. She had talked to warlords and terrorists and politicians who were worse than both, but she had never talked to something from another world. She watched Marcus carefully, trying to understand what he was doing. Zero took a step closer. He was so tall that Marcus had to look almost straight up to see his face. This close, the alien was even more frightening. His armor seemed to move slightly, like it was part of his body. His forearms hung at his sides, but they could move fast. Very fast. You do not understand, Zil said. This is not a negotiation. This is not a discussion. Every species we have encountered has knelt. Every world we have visited has submitted. The strong kneel because they are wise enough to know they cannot win. The weak kneel because they have no choice. But all kneel in the end. Then I guess you haven't met him before, Marcus said. Guards raised their weapons. Energy glowed at the ends of their rifles, ready to fire. One word from Zethro and the three humans would be nothing but ash on the glass floor. But the commander held up one of his larger hands. The guards lowered their weapons, though they did not put them away. You would die rather than kneel, Zethro asked. I'd rather not die at all, Marcus said. Honestly, I've got things I'd like to do, places I'd like to see, but if the choice is dying on my feet or living on my knees, then yes, I'd rather die. Why? What is the purpose of such stubbornness? If you kneel, you live. Your world lives. Is your pride worth more than billions of lives? Marcus thought about that. He thought about all the people back on Earth, the families waiting to hear what happened, children who did not understand what was going on, the old people who had survived wars and hard times and were now facing something beyond their worst nightmares. Then he thought about what it meant to be human. He thought about his grandfather who had fought in a war long ago and never talked about what he saw, but always stood straight and looked people in the eye. He thought about the stories he had learned as a boy about people who refused to give up, even when everything was against him. Let me tell you something about my people, Marcus said. We're not the strongest species in the universe. Clearly not the biggest. We don't have natural armor like you. We don't have 4 arms. We can't cross galaxies in our ships. 100 years ago we couldn't even fly. Zethro's ass head tilted slightly. He was listening. But we've been around for a long time, Marcus continued, and most of that time we spent fighting. We fought animals that wanted to eat us. We fought nature that wanted to kill us. We fought diseases that should have wiped us out, and more than anything else, we fought each other. We got very good at it. He dropped his cigarette and stepped on it, even though it felt strange to do something so normal in this alien place. The one thing we learned from all that fighting is simple. The moment you kneel, you've already lost. Maybe not Today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually you lose everything. Your freedom, your dignity, your future. Once you kneel, you never really stand up. Again, Captain Ray is a step forward. Now she understood what Marcus was doing and she respected it, but she also had to think about what came next. What my colleague is saying, she said carefully, is that humanity is willing to talk. We're willing to find a way to work together, but we will not submit. We will not become slaves. We do not make slaves, Zethril said. We make subjects. There is a difference, not to us, Marcus said. The chamber was silent. The guards stood still with their weapons ready. The commander looked at the three small humans standing before him. In terms of physical power, he could crush them with one hand. His ship could burn their cities to the ground in hours. His armies could sweep across their world like a wave washing over sand. But there was something in the way this human stood, something in the way he spoke, something in that strange calm smile that would not go away. You are either very brave or very stupid, Zeth said. Finally, in my experience, those are often the same thing, Marcus replied. For a long moment nobody moved. Then Zethro made that sound again, the one that might have been a laugh. You will return to your world, he said. We will speak again, but know this, human, if your people choose to fight us, they will lose. Every species that has fought us has lost. You will be no different. Maybe, Marcus said, but I promise you this, it won't be worth what it costs. The guards escorted them back to their transport. As they flew back down toward Earth, Lieutenant Simmons finally found his voice. What happens now, he asked. Thought. Marcus looked out the window at the planet below. The sun was setting, painting the clouds in red and gold. It was beautiful. It was still home, at least for now. Now we wait, he said, and we get ready for whatever comes next. High above the Earth, Commander Zethro stood in his private chamber and thought about the human who had refused to kneel. In his long life he had conquered many worlds. He had faced warriors of great strength and leaders of great wisdom. He had broken them all. Yet something about this small creature with the calm eyes troubled him. His advisors came to him that night. They were angry. Subcommander Kelix, his second-in-command, spoke first. The humans have insulted us, Kelix said. His mandibles clicked rapidly, showing his fury. They have refused the sacred submission. We must make an example of them. Destroy one of their cities. Show them what happens to those who defy the Dominion. Other advisors agreed. They spoke of honor and tradition. For 1,000 years, the Dominion had demanded submission, and for 1,000 years, every species had eventually given it. If word spread that a primitive species had refused and lived, it would cause problems across the empire. Subject worlds might start to question, rebellions might begin, but Zethro remained silent. He watched the blue planet turning slowly below them. Such a small world, such a young species. They had only discovered fire a few thousand years ago. They had only left their planet a few decades ago. By galactic standards, they were babies. Yet the human had not seemed like a baby. He had seemed like something else entirely. Bring me their history, Zethril ordered. All of it, their wars, their conflicts, their struggles. I want to understand this species before we decide what to do with them. For 3 days, the Valerians studied humanity. They used their advanced technology to access Earth's networks to download their books and videos and records. They watched everything. They saw a city called Stalingrad where humans had fought each other in frozen ruins. Battle had lasted for months. Both sides had lost hundreds of thousands of warriors. They had fought in basements and attics, in sewers and streets. They had fought with rifles and knives and bare hands. Neither side would give up. Neither side would surrender. They just kept fighting until one side finally broke. They saw jungles in a place called Vietnam, where farmers with old weapons had fought against the most powerful military on their planet. The farmers had no ships, no aircraft, no advanced technology, but they knew their land and they would not stop fighting. They hid in tunnels underground. They attacked at night and disappeared by morning. They lost millions of their people, but they never quit. They saw beaches covered with blood where humans had charged into certain death to free countries that were not even their own. They saw mountains where small groups of warriors had held off entire armies. They saw cities burning and rising again, nations falling and being rebuilt, people dying by the millions and coming back stronger. Kelix came to Zil on the fourth day. The sub-commander looked troubled. His earlier anger had faded, replaced by something that might have been concern. I have completed the analysis, Kel said. This species is unusual. Tell me their physical abilities are limited. They are not strong compared to us. They cannot survive in extreme conditions. They require food, water, and rest frequently. By any measure, they should be easy to conquer, but Kelix hesitated. But their psychological profile is unlike anything we have seen. They have a concept they call spite. When facing certain defeat, most species surrender or flee. Humans sometimes choose a third option. They fight harder. They become more dangerous when cornered, not less. Show me the numbers. If we invade their world with our standard forces, we will win. But the cost will be significant. They will not fight like the Thraki, who met us in open battle and were destroyed quickly. They will not fight like the Orvani, who tried to run and were captured easily. They will fight like nothing we have faced before. The numbers appeared in the air, glowing projections that Zethro studied carefully. The projections showed different scenarios. In every scenario, the Dominion won eventually. But in every scenario, the cost was terrible. They will hide in their cities, Kel said. They will make every building a fortress. They will use their own infrastructure against us. They will poison their water before letting us drink it. They will burn their crops before letting us harvest them. They will destroy their own technology before letting us capture it. Scorched earth. Zephril said he had seen such tactics before, but never on the scale. Yes. And there is more. Our intelligence suggests they will adapt to our technology quickly, within a few years. Perhaps less. They will learn to use our own weapons against us. They are remarkably creative when it comes to destruction. Zero thought about this. He thought about the human on the ship, the one called Marcus. He remembered the calm in those eyes. Now he understood it better. It was not stupidity. It was not bravado. It was certainty. The human had known exactly what he was saying, and he had meant every word. What is your recommendation? Zethal asked. Kelix was quiet for a moment. I recommend caution. This species is not like the others. If we push them into a corner, they will not Kneel, they will bite and they will keep biting until one of us is dead. Meanwhile on Earth, the world waited. News networks showed the alien ship. Constantly, a dark shape against the blue sky. Governments held meetings. Armies prepared for war. People prayed to their gods and held their families close. Marcus Cole did none of these things. On the third day after his return, he drove to a small lake outside his hometown. He rented a boat, took his fishing rod, and spent the day alone on the water. An old friend found him there. The world might be ending, and you're fishing. Marcus cast his line into the still water. If the world ends tomorrow, at least I'll have had a good last day. If it doesn't, I'll have some fish for dinner. He caught 3 bass that afternoon. They were good ones. On the ship above, Zethriel made his decision. He called for the human representatives to return, but this time he did not call for warriors. He called for one warrior only. He called for Marcus Cole. The message came at dawn. Marcus was sitting on his porch drinking coffee and watching the sun rise over the hills. His phone buzzed with the same words that were being broadcast around the world. The aliens wanted to talk again, but this time they wanted only one person. They wanted him. The generals were not happy. They did not understand why the aliens had chosen a sergeant instead of a high-ranking officer. They wanted to send someone more important, someone with more authority. But the aliens had been specific. Marcus Cole or no one at all died. So Marcus put on his uniform, said goodbye to his home, and flew back up to the ship in the sky. This time things were different. There were no lines of guards in the corridor. There were no weapons pointed at him. Only 2 Valyrians escorted him through the twisting hallways of the ship, and they walked beside him rather than behind him. It was a small difference, but Marcus noticed it. They brought him to a different chamber than before. This one was smaller, quieter. There were no glass floors or high ceilings. It looked almost comfortable in an alien way. There were seats that seemed designed for conversation and a window that looked out at the stars. Zethriel was waiting for him. The commander stood by the window with his back to the door, looking out at the darkness beyond. When Marcus entered, he turned slowly. You came alone, Zil said. You asked me to. Most species would have sent a larger delegation, more advisors, more warriors. They would have been afraid to send one person into the nest of their enemy. Marcus shrugged. If you wanted to kill me, you could have died last time, or you could just blow up the planet. Sending more people wouldn't change anything. Number Z. Zithro agreed. It would not. He gestured to one of the seats. Marcus sat down, and after a moment the commander sat across from him. It was strange to see such a massive creature sitting like this, almost like 2 men having a conversation in a living room. I have studied your species, Zil said. For 3 days my people have watched your history, your wars, your struggles, your triumphs and tragedies. Find anything interesting. Everything was interesting. The commander's black eyes studied Marcus carefully. Your species has killed more of itself than any outside force ever could. You have weapons that could destroy your own world many times over. You have fought wars over land, over resources, over ideas that cannot even be touched. You are by any rational measure insane. That's been said before, and yet you survive, you grow, you spread across your world like a fire that cannot be put out. Every time something should have destroyed you, you adapt and continue. It is remarkable, it is also terrifying. Marcus did not respond. He just waited for the commander to continue. When he refused to kneel, Zithal said, I thought you were a fool. A brave fool perhaps, but a fool nonetheless. Now I am not so certain. Tell me something human. When you stood before me and refused, were you afraid? Yes. Zil's head tilted. Your body showed no signs of fear. Your voice did not shake. Your heart rate remained steady. Our sensors detected nothing. That doesn't mean I wasn't afraid. It just means I've had practice hiding it. Why hide it? Fear is a natural response. It keeps creatures alive. Marcus thought about how to explain it. He thought about all the times he had been afraid. The first time he went into combat, the first time a friend died in his arms, the nights he woke up sweating from dreams he could not forget. Fear had been his constant companion for years. Where I come from, he said finally, showing fear is dangerous, not because fear is bad, but because enemies use it against you. They watch for weakness. They look for cracks. If they see fear, they push harder. So we learn to hide it. We learn to take all that fear and push it down deep where no one can see it. Then we use it. How? Fear gives you energy. It makes your heart beat faster. Your muscles work harder. It keeps you sharp. If you can control it instead of letting it control you, it becomes a weapon. Zithil considered this. My people do not fear as yours do. We are taught from birth that fear is weakness. We cut it out of ourselves through training and discipline. How's that working out for you? The commander made a sound that might have been a laugh. It has served us well for 1,000 years, but I am beginning to wonder if something has been lost. They sat in silence for a moment, looking out at the stars. From this high up, Earth was just a blue marble against the black, beautiful and small and fragile. I will be honest with you, Zithal said. The Dominion has never failed to conquer a world we have targeted. Never. If we choose to take your planet, we will take it. That is simply fact. I believe you. But my advisors have calculated the cost of such a conquest. It would be high. Higher than any world we have taken before. Your people would not simply surrender. You would fight in your cities, in your forests, in your mountains. You would make every step forward cost us blood. Yes, Marcus said. We would. And even if we won, your people would not stay conquered. They would rebel. They would sabotage. They would find ways to hurt us that we cannot imagine. You would be a wound that never healed, bleeding us slowly for generations. Marcus nodded. That's about the size of it. Zil leaned forward. His massive form seemed to fill the small room. So I must ask you, human, if we do not conquer your world, what happens? We cannot simply leave. To leave without submission would be seen as weakness. Other worlds would question our power. Rebellions would spread. This was the real question. Marcus realized this was why he had been brought here alone. The commander was not looking for a fight or a surrender. He was looking for a solution. What do you need? Marcus asked. Something that looks like a victory, something that lets the Dominion claim success without actually destroying your world. And what do we get? Survival, independence, a future. Marcus looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there beyond the darkness, there were other worlds, other species. Some were part of the Dominion, some were still fighting against it, and somewhere in that vast universe there Might be a place for humanity. I have an idea, Marcus said, but you're not going to like it at first, tell me. Anyway, so Marcus told him. The announcement came on a Tuesday afternoon, broadcast to every screen on Earth. Commander Zethal stood beside Marcus Cole and 3 officials from the United Nations. The whole world watched and waited to hear their fate. The planet Earth has been classified as a protected development zone, Zethal declared. It falls under Dominion jurisdiction but will maintain full autonomy in all internal matters. No Valerian forces will occupy your world. No resources will be taken. Your governments, your cultures, your ways of life will continue as before. Around the world, people held their breath. This sounded too good to be true. There had to be a catch. In exchange, the commander continued, humanity will provide something the Dominion needs. Warriors, the word hung in the air like thunder. Warriors, the aliens wanted humans to fight for them. The details came out over the following weeks. The Dominion was vast, stretching across thousands of star systems, but at the edges of their empire there were threats, species that would not kneel, enemies that could not be conquered through normal means, wars that dragged on for centuries without end. Valerians were powerful, but they were also predictable. They fought in straight lines with rigid formations and strict rules. This worked against most enemies, but some enemies were different. Some enemies required a different kind of warrior. They needed humans. The debates lasted for months. The United Nations held emergency sessions that went on for days without rest. Religious leaders called it a deal with the devil. Peace activists said humanity should refuse to fight anyone's wars but their own. Military experts called it the greatest opportunity in human history. Captain Linda Rise was part of the team that negotiated the final terms. She fought hard for every point. Volunteer only. She insisted no one will be forced to serve. If a human does not want to fight, they don't fight. The Valerians agreed. Human command structures, she continued. Our soldiers will be led by human officers using human tactics. We will not become part of your military hierarchy. This was harder, but eventually they agreed to this as well. The right to refuse any mission. If we believe a fight is unjust, we can walk away. Zephyr himself had to approve this. He did not like it. In the Dominion, orders were followed without question, but he understood that humans were different and he accepted the condition. And finally Linda said, access to your technology. The humans who serve will learn from you. They will bring knowledge back to Earth. Our planet will grow stronger, not weaker. From this arrangement, this was the part that made the other Dominion leaders nervous. Giving advanced technology to a species as aggressive as humanity seemed dangerous, but Zethal had studied these creatures. He had seen what they could do with nothing but rocks and sticks. Better to have them as all eyes than enemies. Agreed, he said. The first recruitment centers opened 6 months later. To everyone's surprise, there was no shortage of volunteers. Young men and women who had grown up dreaming of the stars now had a chance to see them. Soldiers who had spent their careers fighting other humans were curious about fighting something new. Adventurers, dreamers, and those who simply wanted to be part of history came forward by the thousands. Marcus Cole was among the first to sign up. The night before the first group shipped out, Linda Ruse found him at a bar near the training base. He was drinking beer, alone, watching a football game on the television above the bar. You know what this means, right? She asked, sitting beside him. We're going to war for aliens, fighting species we've never met, killing creatures that have never done anything to us for reasons we don't really understand. Marcus took a sip of his beer. We've always done that. At least this time we're getting paid and we're not fighting each other. Do you think we can do it? Really make a difference out there? He thought about everything that had happened, the ship in the sky, the chamber on the alien vessel, the commander who had expected him to kneel and found something else. Instead, humans have been surprising people for a long time, he said. I don't see why the rest of the galaxy should be any different. The transport ship launched the next morning. Marcus stood at a window watching Earth get smaller and smaller until it was just a blue dot against the black. Around him, hundreds of other human soldiers prepared for the journey ahead. Some were nervous, some were excited, some were scared, but none of them were kneeling. 3 years later, word reached Earth of the Battle of Caraxes 7. A Dominion colony had been surrounded by enemy forces. The situation was hopeless. The Valerian commanders had already written it off as lost. Then the humans arrived. 200 soldiers against an army of 10,000. The odds were impossible. By every calculation, they should have been destroyed in hours. They held the colony for 18 days. They used tactics the enemy had never seen. They set traps in places no one expected. They struck at night, disappeared by dawn, and struck again from a different direction. They were everywhere and nowhere at once. When they finally ran out of ammunition, they fought with knives. When the knives broke, they fought with their hands. Relief forces arrived on the 19th day. They found 112 humans still alive, surrounded by the bodies of their enemies. The colony had been saved. Zethrill received the report in his chambers. He read it twice, then put it down and looked out at the stars. Remarkable, he said to himself. Absolutely remarkable. Back on Earth, a monument was built to honor the fallen. It was simple and plain, just a stone wall with names carved into it. At the bottom, someone had added a short phrase. The word spread across the planet and then across the galaxy until every species in the Dominion knew them by heart. Humanity does not kneel. And in a bar somewhere on a distant world, surrounded by aliens who had once thought themselves superior, an old soldier raised his glass and smiled, that same calm smile he had shown a commander long ago. The universe had learned the lesson. It was still learning.